which is actually not that good, because the more fat that you have around the heart, the more chances of heart disease. Yeah. Okay. So this is the apex of the heart. Okay. So if I put a pointer at the end of the tip of the heart, you know, I mean, you could say myocardium or whatnot, but at the end of the tip of the heart, I'm basically expecting you to say the apex of the heart, right? Okay. Now, before you cut this open, before you dissect this, you should identify the key features, okay? And you can identify them easily. And you can identify them easily, which are these flaps of tissues, okay? You can lift them up, okay? So this is one here, and there is one here. It's covered by a lot of fat, so it's hard for it to move, okay? So these two, these are the right and left, specifically auricles, okay? These are the auricles of the heart, okay? Well, the atria, yes, the atria are inside, right below it, right?
Okay, so
But technically speaking, this flap of tissue is considered the auricle.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So use these as your source of reference when you cut the heart. Okay. So align the heart like this. Okay. And cut in a in this fashion, going from right to left, because you wanna see both the right and left atria and the right and left ventricles. So when you cut in this direction, okay, which is a coronary section, you want to do a frontal or coronary section, right? And you will be able to visualize the structures. Okay. All right. So now let's do the, and don't hold it like this and cut. Your fingers should be away from the blade when you're cutting. So you hold it like this, so your blade cannot go on your fingers. Okay, you cut one side. Don't try to cut the entire heart in one swing. See this blade? It's not that long. Okay, it's not a bread knife. Okay, so cut one side of the heart. Keep going down all the way. Then flip over and continue cutting on the other side, and you will encounter some resistance from the tough arteries. Okay, then you see in the middle you have some tissue. You put it in between and you continue the butchering. And see when I'm cutting through, you see this? I'm cutting through the valve. Which valve am I cutting through? It's an AV valve for sure. Okay, and don't worry about that you're cutting through the valve.
Okay.
You will still be able to visualize it. So when you cut through, don't cut it through completely. Leave it attached, so you can use it as a reference. Okay, the both halves. Okay. Now, let's look at the insides. Okay. And start with a source of reference that is easily identifiable, and then you can work your way around it, and you can figure out everything else. Shoshana, can you see from there?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So here you have it's the ventricles. Okay. These are the ventricles. How do we know these are the ventricles? Because it's very thick. Okay. So which ventricle though? Where's which ventricle? How will we know? Well, see this muscle is so thick. Okay, so in the middle, yes, this space is the cavity of the left. This is the left ventricle. Okay, these are the walls of the left ventricle. Why? Because the left ventricle pumps blood out to the aorta, which has the most resistance in the human body, right? So the ventricles have to be very muscular in order to pump out to the blood to the arteries and to the aorta. Okay, the right ventricle pumps blood out to the lungs. That's why you see this here is the right ventricle. Okay, but the walls are much thinner of the right ventricle, because the right ventricle is only pumping to the lungs, not as much resistance from the tissues. unless you have, pathologies, then it's a different story. Okay. Now, to left and right ventricles, we established that, right? Okay. Now let's build on that. Okay. So here now, in the left ventricle, what valve are you going to have? Connecting which connects, yes, mitral. Okay. You have the mitral valve, which connects to the left atrium, then left ventricle, right? So how will you know that this is a mitral valve that you're looking at? Well, you will see these thread-like structures, the chordae tendineae. When you see these chordae tendineae, you know for sure that this is the mitral valve. It cannot be the aortic valve. Aortic valve does not have chordae tendineae, right? Only the AV valves have chordae tendineae.
Right.
Okay. So if this is the mitral valve, then these are the flaps of the mitral valve. Okay. And if these are the flaps of the mitral valve, if you go superior, you go up through the mitral valve, you go up. Which chamber are you in now? The left atrium. See how big the left atrium is? Humongous. No, it's not. It's so tiny. I can put my finger in it. That's it.
Oh, wow.
This is the left atrium. Yeah, it's very small. Yeah, why? And again, what does that tell you? That the atria, their work is not that doesn't require that much energy or efficiency. So the muscles are not that big. Okay, they just have to pump the blood from the atria into the ventricles. That's it. Okay, so the blood will flow from the atria through this flap to the mitral. If mitral will open, blood will come in here. Now the left ventricle now is going to eject blood out. Okay, and in order for it to eject blood out, it's going to pump it out. Yes, it's going to pump it out into the aorta. Okay, so you see when we cut this, we cut the aorta a little, and this is the next to the mitral. See, this is the mitral. We cut it. This correlates. This is still the mitral, right? Next to it, see, is another opening, and if you put my probe, it goes like this. Where is this probe going? It's going to the left ventricle. And is it going through the mitral valve? No. It's going out through another opening, so it means it must be going out through the aortic valve into the aorta, because those are the only two openings in the left atrium.
Right.
Either the mitral valve and into the atrium, or out the aortic valve into the aorta. Simple as that. Right? Makes sense?
Yes.
Logical. Okay. So that is the left. Side of the heart. Now, above the left atrium. Okay. This is the left atrium. It's still the left side here. If I put my probe up here, above the left atrium, where is blood coming into left atrium from? Remember?
From the
pulmonary vein, because it's oxygenated blood. So this here must be the pulmonary vein. How will you know this is the pulmonary vein? No, I'm not talking about the aorta.
It's the right side.
Because it's on
No,
the
it's the left one. It's on the left side,
And the atria.
right? But
The atria connects.
it's above the atria. It's above the mitral. So it has to be the pulmonary vein. Yeah. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
You will don't worry. If you're getting confused, you'll get the hang of it when you do it yourself and you probe and prod your heart yourself. Yeah.
So
All
in
right.
the human heart, the atrias are also smaller.
Very small. Very small. Yeah. This is more realistic. When we draw these diagrams and pictures, we make them so you understand better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which one were those were the left?
This was the
pulmonary
left. This was the left ventricle. Let me recap. Left ventricle. The mitral valve. Because this is the left side, it has to be the mitral valve, which is an AV valve. Then if you go above the mitral valve, this region here, above the mitral, above the flap of the valve, okay? Not this. That is the beginning of the aorta. This here, above, this is the atrium, left atrium. This is space above the flap of the mitral valve here. And if you go above this, Okay, the left atrium gets its blood from the pulmonary vein. That's the pulmonary vein. Okay, and from the left ventricle, this structure going out has to be the aorta because it's not going through the mitral. So if it's not going through the mitral, it has to be the semilunar valve. Semilunar valve in the left ventricle is the aortic valve. So if it's the aortic valve, then it has to be the aorta.
So that one's the aorta going to the aorta valve
Yes.
to the aorta,
Yeah,
and the other one's the pulmonary veins.
yeah.
Gotcha.
So are we good on the left side?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Macruz, can you see from there? Come around here. Okay, you have good eyes. All right. Okay, so now this other side, this is the right side of the heart. Okay? This is the right ventricle. Okay? And when you look at this structure here, these are the chordae tendineae of the right ventricle. Okay? So what does that mean? This means the valve over here is the tricuspid. Tricuspid valve, yes. Okay? So if it's the tricuspid valve, if you go above it, hopefully I don't rupture it. There we go. If I go above the tricuspid, I go into the right atrium, and the blood vessel that supplies blood to the right atrium, the vena cava. So this has to be the site of the entrance of the vena cava.
Of both, you mean superior and the inferior?
Right.
Okay.
The vena cava in general, you can just say vena cava.
Vena cava. Okay.
Okay. Makes sense? All right. All right. Now, the right ventricle, that's where it receives blood from. But when it pumps out blood, it's not going to go through the tricuspid. It goes out to the semilunar, which will be on the other side. Okay? So here, when the right ventricle pumps blood out, it goes out through the pulmonary valve, which is in between there. You can't see it. Okay? And this blood vessel coming out is the pulmonary artery. And inside it is the pulmonary valve.
That's after the pulmonary, after the right ventricle, right?
Yes, from the right ventricle. Right from the right ventricle pumps out via the pulmonary valve into the pulmonary artery. What does it carry? Pulmonary artery carries oxygenated or deoxygenated blood?
Deoxygenated.
Even though it's an artery, yes. Remember the pulmonaries are switched. Okay, so I think it's fairly simple now, right? Looks good. So now, okay, go forth and dissect.